How are you doing, math learners? This is your free access math teacher Ash, and welcome to ML with Sir Ash. For today's lesson, we're going to discuss how to solve equations that are transformable to quadratic equation. So before anything else, hit that subscribe button and notification bell for you to be updated of these cool clear math videos just like this. Hello math learners! Welcome to our session for the last lesson in week 3 for the most essential learning competency-based lessons for Mathematics 9 Quarter 1 Week 3. This is entitled as Equations Transformable to Quadratic Equations. So, how do we solve equations that in the first look, you cannot say that it is a quadratic equation, but in the long run, when you solve it, it will become quadratic equation. So, these are the things you should need to consider. Let's consider 10 over x plus 1 is equal to 3x. As you can see here in this example, it is not clear where the power of 2 or the degree of 2 is located, right? But we need to convert this into a standard form. Remember that the standard form of a quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. So, how do we do this? First, let us try to eliminate the denominator of this equation. How do we do that? Simple. We just need to multiply the whole equation by its denominator. So, we multiply 10 over x plus 1 is equal to 3x by the denominator, which is x. By multiplying this one, this will be applied through the distributive property of multiplication. Same goes to this one. Alright. Now, x times 10, that is 10x. 10x divided by x, the x will be cancelled, leaving us positive 10. And then, x times 1, that is positive x, equals 3x times x is 3x squared. Now, as you can see, in this part of the equation, we already have a quadratic equation. However, it's not yet in the standard form. So what we will do is we transpose them and transform it into a quadratic equation. By transposing, we have 3x squared minus x, our 10 goes here, that will become minus 10. So, nothing will be left here except 0. Now, by the use of the symmetry property, we can just write this one as this 3x squared minus x minus 10 is equal to 0, which is the standard form of the quadratic equation. Now, by doing so, if you are already in this part, you can now apply the 4 methods of solving quadratic equation, whether it is extracting square root, factoring, completing the square, or by the use of a quadratic formula. But for us to solve easily and faster, since A, B, and C are all available, we can just apply factoring. So by the use of factoring, we will make 2 quantities equated to 0. Now let us just delete this one. And then, we will factor first the first term, the quadratic term, that is 3x squared. What are the factors of 3x squared? That is 3x and x. Okay. Next, we will factor the constant term, that is negative 10. So that means we need to use unlike signs, that is positive and negative. And such that when we add them, it will become negative 1. However, this is quite the what we call tricky part. Why? Because there are no factors of 10 or negative 10 that when added together, it will result to negative 1. However, as you can see here, our 3 will have a bigger part or bigger role in our factors because it will stand as a multiplicand for one of the factors in order for it to result to negative 1. So how? Let's consider first negative 1 and positive 10. Next is positive 1 and negative 10. We have positive 2 and negative 5. We have negative 2 and positive 5. Now, if we try to multiply each of these factors, this will result to negative 10, right? Okay. However, we tend to use the result as negative 1 when we add them. If we add this 1, it will result to positive 9. If we add this 1, negative 9. If we add this 1, we will have negative 3. If we add this 1, we will have positive 3. So how do we get to our negative 1? Simple. We will use our value 3 to multiply one of the factors in order for it to become negative 1. Okay, so if 3 is multiplied here, let's just use this one. If 3 is multiplied here, this will become negative 3 plus 10, still not negative 1. So, that is not the factors. If we use 3 times 1, we have 3 plus negative 10, that is negative 7. Still not the middle term. So, that's not the factor. Now, if we consider here, it will give us a bigger value. So, we are getting way further to our negative 1. So, let's not use. So, we have now here our remaining factors, 2 and negative 5 and negative 2 and 5. Now, I'll teach you the technique here. Very simple, math learners. We are aiming that our value is negative 1 when added. So, in which factor can 3 be multiplied in order for, when added, it will become to positive 1. Now, let's try here. 3 times 2, that is 6. 6 plus negative 5, that is positive 1. Oops! Close, but not enough. Now, let's try this one. 3 times negative 2, that is negative 6 plus 5, then that will result to negative 1. So, therefore, we have 3 to be multiplied to our negative 2. So, by doing so, we need negative 2 here. The question is, where do we put our negative 2 and positive 5 in this scenario? The technique here is very simple, math learners. Since we are aiming that 3 will be multiplied to negative 2, in the FOIL method, this one must be multiplied here. So, we will put our negative 2 here, and we will put our positive 5 there. So, now, we have the factors for our 3x squared minus x minus 10 is equal to 0. If you try to multiply this one, that will give you 3x squared. If you multiply this one, the last terms, it will give you negative 10. Now, if you multiply the inner terms, that is 5x. The outer terms, that is negative 6x. When added together, that is negative 1. Therefore, our factors are correct. Now, what's next? We will solve them separately. So, by solving them separately, we just make one line here. We put 3x plus 5 equated to 0 here. And we have here x minus 2 is equal to 0 there. What we do is we isolate the value of our x. So, we transpose our negative 2, giving us 0 plus 2, that is positive 2. We have our first value of x. Next, here, we transpose it, giving us 3x is equal to negative 5. However, we still have 3 here in our x, so we divide both sides by 3, canceling x here and giving us negative 5 over 3. And this is the second value of our x. So, for this given equation, 10 over x plus 1 is equal to 3x. In order for the equation to be true, the values of your x must be either positive 2 or negative 5 over 3. Simple, right? Now, let's try another example. Now, for our second example, we still have denominators like this. Okay, so we have 4 over x plus 4 over x plus 6 is equal to 1. So, as what I've said earlier, if you have equations that have a denominator, the first thing you should do is to eliminate the denominator by multiplying the whole equation by its denominator or getting the LCD. So, how do we multiply this one? Since we do have two different denominators, we have x and x plus 6. We can use those two denominators as our multiplicand. So, we have x here, and x plus 6 here. On the other side, we have x and x plus 6. Okay. So now, we will use our distributive property in multiplying. Now, in order for you not to have a harder time or difficult time in multiplying this one, the technique here is very simple. Since they are the same, right? So you can just cancel them and you just multiply 4 to x plus 6. Okay. So you don't have any more over x in the denominator side. While here, since these are the two to be multiplied here, they are the same, x plus 6. You can cancel them, leaving you x and 4. So you just multiply 4 times x. And while here, since that is 1, you just multiply the two factors, the two multiplicand with each other. So that is x times x and x plus 6. Okay, so x squared plus 6x. Okay, so let's just simplify here. We have 4x plus 24 plus 4x is equal to x squared plus 6x. Okay, now what we will do here is we just try to simplify it into our quadratic equation, the standard form. So we combine the same signs, so that will become 24 plus 8x is equal to x squared plus 6x. Then we transpose everything on the other side. So we have x squared plus 6x minus 8x minus 24. Now we can still simplify this one, giving us x squared minus 2x minus 24. That will be equal to 0. Okay, now let's just erase this one. Okay, now let's just mirror our equation. That is the symmetrical property. Okay, so we have x squared minus 2x minus 24 is equal to 0. Now this is very easy when we use factoring because our quadratic term is just x squared, so we can just put x here. Okay, that is equated to 0. Then we factor negative 24 such that when added together, the answer is negative 2. Now what are the factors of 24? We have 1 and 24, negative 1 and positive 24, positive 1 and 24. Now what are the factors that has a difference of 2? We cannot use 8 and 3 because that is 5. But we can use 6 and 4. Now, as you can see, since negative 2 here is our middle term, then what we need to consider is the bigger factor should be negative 6 and the other factor is positive 4. Because if we multiply them, that is negative 24. And if we add them, that is negative 2. Okay, so this is a correct factor. Now, we will separate them, solve them separately, equating them each to 0. So, the final answer here, when transposed, in order for it to be isolated, our value of x, that is positive 6. While here, we have negative 4. And that is the two final answers for our equation. 4 over x plus 4 over x plus 6 is equal to 1. Now, if you want to check this one, very simple. What you just need to do is to substitute the value of your x to your x in your original equation and solve them. Okay? I'm sure the answers are correct. Now, let us go to the third equation. Okay, now math learners, we are here to our third example. This is 7 times the quantity x squared minus 9 is equal to x times the quantity x minus 3. As what I've said earlier, we need to transform our equations into quadratic equation. The ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. Now here, you can just apply the distributive property, right? And then transpose. However, sometimes there are some techniques that you can consider in order for your answers to be faster. Okay, as you can see here, this one is a difference of two squares, right? This can be factored out. Now, if you can factor this one, x squared minus 9, that is x plus 3 times x minus 3. While in the other side, that is x minus 3. As you observe in this part, they are the same, right? So you can just divide both sides by x minus 3. X minus 3 cancelled out, leaving you 7. X plus 3 is equal to x. Easy, right? Okay, so now what you can do here is, you just distribute this one, 7x plus 21 is equal to x. Okay, and then the other side, you just transpose this one. So we have this one, okay. Then that is 6x plus 21 is equal to 0. Transpose 21, we have negative 21. Divide both sides by 6. Divide both sides by 6. Cancel. However, you cannot divide negative 21 by 6, but you can simplify them by lowest term. Divide both sides by 3, giving you negative 7 over 2. And this is your final answer. Now, the question is, Sir Ash, what is the other value that we need to consider? Remember that we factored out x minus 3 here. So therefore, the other value is x minus 3 is equal to 0, and that is positive 3. So therefore, both of your two values of x are this one. Okay? Very, very simple technique. But in this case, this is just a case-to-case basis. However, if you distribute this manually and then you settle with the ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0, then you can still do so and you will end up the same answers. Okay, math learners? Okay, now let us go to our final example. Okay, math learners, we are now down to our final example. This is the square root of y squared plus 5y plus 3 is equal to 3y. Now, in this scenario, we can see that there is a radical sign. And though we can see the power of 2 here, it does not mean that that is a quadratic equation. Okay, because of this square root symbol. So, the question is, how do we solve this? First of all, remember that our aim here is to transform our equation to a quadratic equation, right? Or as much as possible, we can simplify it. Now, in order for us to eliminate the square root symbol, remember the opposite of things. The opposite of plus is minus, times is divide, divide is times, and the opposite of the power of 2 is the square root. Same goes, the opposite of square root is the power of 2. So what do we do here? In order for us to eliminate the square root symbol, we just need to use the power of 2. Now, if you use the power of 2 in the left side, you also use the power of 2 in the right side, because in mathematics, it should always be fair. What you do in the left, you do it in the right. What you do it in the right, you do it in the left. Okay? That is one thing in mathematics that we can be proud of, that everything should be reasonable. Okay? Now, by doing the power of 2 or the squared power in our square root, that will eliminate them with each other. Okay? They will nullify with each other. So, leaving us y squared plus 5y plus 3. Now, here in this part, 3y squared to the power of 2, that is multiplied by itself. So, 3y times 3y, that will give you 9y squared. Okay. And then, since the quadratic form here is bigger, then we transpose everything to the other side. So, we have 9y squared minus y squared minus 5y. Okay, sorry. Minus 3. Okay. Now, as you can see, all of the signs are changed when you transpose. Okay. And then we simplify. That will give us 8y squared minus 5y minus 3. So, this is equated to 0. We use the symmetrical property. So, 8y squared minus 5y minus 3 is equal to 0. Now, for you to understand this, you just mirror them. Okay? So, it's just the same as 5 plus 3 is equal to 8, and 8 is equal to 5 plus 3. Okay. Now, this is already in the quadratic equation, so we can use our factoring here. Okay. 0. Now, it might be very tricky here, right? Because 8y squared is very big. And we have a lot of factors for 8y squared. Now, let us consider first here, because negative 3 doesn't have any factors. There are only two. That is positive 1 and negative 3, or negative 3 and positive 1. Okay. So, let's just consider, this is trial and error, okay? So, negative 3 and positive 1. Okay. Now, as you can see, we need to multiply the factors of 8 to one of these two, okay? By which, if we add them, the answer is negative 5. Now, for sure, if we multiply this one, that will give us 24, negative 24. That's big, right? So, if we use this one, that is positive 8, right? Positive 8 minus 3, that is positive 5. Okay, so therefore, the sign here is the problem. So, we can just make this as positive 3. We can just make this one as negative 1. Okay, now, let's try again. 8 times negative 1, that is negative 8. Negative 8 plus 3, that is negative 5. Therefore, we have 8 as our multiplier for the negative 1. So, in order for it to be multiplied to 8, we should put our 8 here. So, that is 8y. And the other one is y. Okay, why? Because if we multiply this one, 8y squared. If you multiply this one, that is negative 3. But if you multiply these two and then add them together, that will give you negative 8, positive 3. The result is negative 5. Okay, so our factors are correct. Now, we can say that these factors are our factors for 8y squared minus 5y minus 3. So, what we will do next is to solve them separately. So, this is 1 minus y minus 1, is equal to 0. And then here, 8y plus 3 is equal to 0. Transposing it will give us negative 3. Transposing this one will give us positive 1. And that is already the answer for the other side. However, this is not yet finished. We divide both sides by 8. So, y is equal to negative 3 over 8. And this is our final answer. Negative 3 over 8 and positive 1. So, somehow I know, math learners, that this is quite a challenging lesson for our grade 9 students. However, let me remind you that you just need to have constant practice and remember that the end goal of solving equations, transformable to quadratic equations, is to end it first in the standard form. Then when you get in the standard form, you can just apply any of the 4 methods that we have already discussed in our sessions. So now, this is the time that I will challenge you whether you have understood our lesson completely. So, here it is. Math learners, I hope you have learned our lesson efficiently and effectively. And remember, if you do have some question, do not forget to write or to comment in our comment section below, because I will surely help you in your endeavors. This is still your free access math teacher, Ash. And always remember, it is fun to learn mathematics if we are together learning. Thank you, keep safe, and God bless. Fellow math learners, if you think you like this video, hit the like button and the subscribe button. That is, if you are committed of learning mathematics the easy way. Thank you.